Okay, so a quick look at the drawing. We have to make a decision as to where we're going to start, and that's going to drive our location, the plane that we select to begin with. The sketch I can draw from the top, and then would be extruding down. If we drew from the front, then I would be extruding back. I think I can get the most geometry from this right side view by drawing this L shape. So when we create that geometry, then we'll be extruding in direction. If I make this the front, then I'm going to be kind of rotated. It really doesn't matter orientation. So until you get a feel for picking those locations to start our sketch, we'll just pick whatever's convenient and go from there. We have a radius of 12 in two places, but when I look at this and kind of come across, again, that looks a little bit lower, so we might make an adjustment there, or we'll draw it as detailed and edit it later. Whenever we see this 7 by 20 as the spacing, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hole locations. That's going to indicate that I would want to be in a linear pattern. And then 138 plus 12 would be 150, and this is giving me 160, so that means that that's only 10. Yeah, the math still doesn't add up for me there. And visually, we're going to go with the numbers, but there's a question mark that arises from this geometry. All right, so I'm going to fly this out. Maybe I'm going to fly this out. And we need to pick a location. So again, if I just go to the front for starting out, if we draw everything on the front, it's not a big deal. Notice that my origin went from blue to red. That lets me know I'm in a sketch. The short leg will be horizontal, long leg will be vertical. So even if I rotate out of position and get this thing kind of wherever, I'm going to be able to have a reference and somewhat with the reference triad. So hitting Control 1 is going to bring me back to the front plane, and I'm ready to select my sketch tools. So I think I did that by habit. Right click and sketch. If I hold down if I select on the front and then come up to sketch, that will put me in, and the edit sketch, and then the three views pop up to select. So you're going to pick one. I'm going to have you start, and we'll go with that right click and go into the sketch to get us started. Smart Dimensions will put in our dimensioning tools. The line command, circle, rectangle, arc, those are the four that we're going to use the most. We also have oblongs, polygons, the sketch fillet tool, ellipses, splines, and then we're going to avoid the plane at this point. It is a little more complicated than we want to go. And then the text and points. We don't use points very much, but they do come in handy. We'll go over to the trim, and anywhere you see the pull downs, trim, extend, convert entities, intersecting curves, offset entities, mirror entities, and then our linear and circular sketch patterns. Be able to display and delete relations, which we will get into relations here pretty quick. Repairing sketches if it has a problem, and then being able to modify the quick snaps. If your rapid sketch or instant 2D is on, we're going to turn those off, and then the toggle for the shaded sketch contours. I can't remember if that was on is here by default, or if I added it in the customize. All right, so let's go through some of the sketching, and I'm just going to go with the line command. And so just kind of out here in space, if I draw a line, and then I'm going to go back to select. So I right click and hit select, or we hit escape on the keyboard. That will clear the command. That it was a left click, hold down, and drag. Alright, so basically a click and drag. If I go back into the line command and I switch to, notice the inference lines, it's trying to line me up to existing geometries, the origin, the existing line. So my other option is, if you prefer, you can go click, and it will stay continuous. And then we'll start to see the relations pop up. So the little yellow box tells me that I'm perpendicular. And as we come over, I'll see that it is collinear. And the inference, the yellow inference lines are showing me where those two exist. If I want to get out of that, I'm going to hit escape, or we can right click and in the chain double click, or switch to arc by going to A. Alright, so those are all combinations that you're going to get used to start off with. Just take it slow, and we're going to build in the geometry. So I'll go ahead and leave that one there. And let's start looking at our relations. So as I drag over the line, we're going to see the midpoint. When I hover over the midpoint, I get the symbol that shows me I'm at the midpoint, or I would be selecting the midpoint. We have an endpoint and an endpoint, and if I left click, hold down, and drag, I'm going to be able to rubber band that geometry. If I drag over to the origin, I'm going to see that little yellow dot that tells me I'm going to go coincident. We want to relate everything back to the origin in some way, shape, or form, and that is going to position and give reference to the orientation of the sketch. All right, so even though I've brought this line to horizontal, there's no existing relation. So in this case, since I did not infer a relation, we're going to add it by placing it horizontal. All right, so now if I try to drag this, I can change its length. It's still going to rubber band, but I can't rotate it. Where this one will still rotate, I can get it kind of into position. And then same thing, we're either going to come over and go to vertical, or if I move it a little bit, we'll get the pop-up. Oh, I'm on the point, so let's grab the line, and I'll get the little pop-up that says make vertical. All right. And then again, if I drag, left click, hold down, and drag to the points, this one, instead of being coincident, actually goes to a concentric. So you're going to learn these symbols, all those little visual clues that are coming across the screen. And I'm not sure why the points, other than the center point of a circle to a center point, or an endpoint to an endpoint, becomes concentric, but if I drop it, it's not going to give me a relation. Alright, so I don't want to overwhelm you with relations, but we're going to go through different combinations as we build into these. So another important process is to select, hold down the control button, and select. I'm fond of saying that the primary function of your left index finger is to hold down the control button. So when you select, hold down the control button and select, you're going to see the preview in orange of what you're selecting, and then the two blue dots. Here I can go over to merge, which was the same as dragging. And if I had applied the concentric, or I had applied, in this case, the merge, I don't see an existing relation. They just exist at the same point, and now they rubber band together. Alright, I want to draw some more lines. So I do have the L button on the keyboard, but we're going to come over to our function, drag out a little bit, and then again, I am a left click, hold down, so a click and drag. If you prefer the click, that's fine. And then I'm seeing those inferences, so let me back up one. Alright, so that was the line that I just drew, and I got out of the line command, so I'm going to hit L on the keyboard just to jump back into it. And as I drag this across, I'm seeing the little yellow box that is telling me that I am horizontal. I'm seeing the inference line that is giving me that kind of that perpendicular. And when I get to just above that point, it's going to give me another inference line that is going to show me the orientation for vertical. As I drag that down, it's giving me the concentric and the vertical to finish out the sketch. Right, so because this isn't tied to the origin, I'm still able to rubber band. I can get some pretty weird results. And so as I apply the dimensions, we inferred a lot of relations. We applied a couple of, at least one relation manually. And I'm going to, as I go through, I'm going to be able to see those relations pop up as I select. This is also where if I come over to the view and down to view sketch relations, I can turn on all of the sketch relations. Pretty quick, our sketches are going to get complicated enough that these little green boxes are going to start to take over. And at that point, we would come up, we would turn off the sketch relations, and then it's kind of acting like a filter. It's only going to show me the sketch relations that I want to see. So let's say I wanted to get rid of the horizontal. I can click on it and hit delete, and that will make it go away. Control Z should bring it back. Or if I come over to the properties, then I can hit delete or right click. Be careful with delete all, because anything that's selected and is listed in the box, delete all means what it says. So if I hit delete, now this is going to be able to move somewhat independently. It's going to be able to rotate. It's orbiting around the point. And then I decide I could do the Control Z, but I can also go back in and add another horizontal. Notice it went from horizontal 2 to horizontal 6. It's just incrementing those values. It doesn't matter to me what the value is after that, just that it has a horizontal relation. Alright, so to finish out our first sketch, we need some numbers. And in our case, in this case, the dimensions are just another relation. The dimensions are going to drive the lengths of those lines. So we have 8 millimeters and 30 millimeters and 10 millimeters with a radius of 3 in the middle. And I have to make a decision. Am I going to include that as a sketch fillet, or am I going to do it as a feature fillet? So for the first go round, we're going to do it as a sketch fillet. But if I had a lot of fillets, I would want to consider it as a feature fillet, so it doesn't make the sketch overly complicated. We go into the smart dimension, and what makes a smart dimension smart is that when I click, it's going to give me an appropriate dimension. So if we say that is 30, and I know I did that kind of fast, so let me Control Z out of that. We go into smart dimension, I left click, I am moving the dimension to wherever I want to place it. I left click again, and when I do, it's going to come up with the modify box, and that's going to be where I put in the 30. Alright, so in that case I selected the object. For some reason I needed to select two objects. I can go object to object. This did not give me a vertical dimension, so I'm making an assumption that it is 30, but we may want to come back and change that later. And then I would say my least desirable, but if you prefer, you can go point to point. The problem with point to point, depending on geometry, it can orbit, and the dimension can orbit where the horizontal or applying between two objects kind of retains that that orientation. So this was 8 millimeters, and I'm going to go back to selecting the object, mainly because it's picking one thing instead of a couple, 2 or 3 things. And then we have a dimension of 10. Alright, at this point, right click, select, and everything should move. And moving is not really a good thing at this point. If it can shift position, it may affect something in the assembly, depending on how it's oriented. So my quickest, easiest is going to be to select a corner, hold down the control button, select the origin, and when I make those coincident, all of my blue geometry now goes to black, and the sketch goes to fully defined. So let's do that one more time. Oh, I'm dragging my dimension. Alright, in the bottom left it shows me, bottom right shows me under defined. And when I select, control select, whoops, I got one button happy there. Or I left click, hold down, and I'm doing that, drag the mouse, and see the coincident, that's going to get me to my fully defined condition. Alright, so that's our goal, is to make these sketches fully defined. There are very few happy accidents in mechanical design. It will usually catch up to us and cause problems. So last is to create the solid model feature. So we are going to extrude, and this is going to be a blind-in condition. It can either come towards us or go away from us. It doesn't necessarily matter. So if we leave the default, it's coming towards us. If I reverse the direction, it will go away, go the other way. So we have a reference dimension of 160, and I go ahead and accept that. Hitting Control 7 puts me in the isometric view, and it doesn't necessarily look the way I want it, but that's going to be okay. We're going to save this, and I need to set up my first project. So if I come over to, let's put it in Google Drive, because I think that's going to be a little helpful. We'll create a new folder, and this is going to be my MPT 150 projects. And then my first project is this is P5-16, and we start to set up our file structure and manage these geometries. All right, so from our list, this is the base, and we'll stay with. If you want to go with the part numbers, you can set up the naming convention however you like. We go ahead and save it.